Hi, y'all. I'm Shannon Mitchell, a Black millennial entrepreneur and Amazon bestselling publisher, author, and all-natural product manufacturer. I'm a champion for your natural self-care, sustainable business care, and overall intentional wellness.
Hey, y'all. I'm Christine Gautreaux, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, published author, and dancing social worker who helps you upgrade yourself and community care.
Together, we are a podcast rooted in the 8 dimensions of wellness and the co-founders of the Women Connected in Wisdom community.
And we like to get together every week for intentional conversations between us and special guests about how to be wise in business, relationships, and wellness.
How do we do this?
Yes. Hello.
Hello. How are you?
So grateful. So grateful for the work that we do. And I don't think we've talked about this. Do we want to talk about this on the air? Let's go ahead and tell everybody. Let's go ahead and tell everybody about the queue, right, y'all? We have been putting guests, amazing guests, all of our guests are amazing, right, in this queue for the podcast because we are booked out till 2026. Today, currently, where we are sitting, okay, it is March 5th, 2025, and we're like, our ladies have projects, and they have a lot of projects. We don't know what they're going to be doing in 2026. We don't even want to take up space on your calendar if we might be changing the topic and have a place that's better fit to support you. So I'm great that that's where we are. And the level of people that we're putting on this list is like, I can't wait to get there.
Right? So exciting. We have such an incredible slate of guests. I am just thrilled. Today, we're talking about physical wellness.
Yeah.
And I have had a week full of self-care appointments, which has been, this is the part that I think as women connecting wisdom, right? Like people are like, oh, I don't know. Maybe it's my own imagination. Maybe I think that, it's so much easier for other people. But
Okay.
like
Which
this
part?
week, I've had my regular annual checkup to where, you get your blood drawn, you do the fasting, you do all that. And then there's always at my age, there's always follow-up appointments after that.
Good to know. Good to know.
And then I did a dental and this is the week for the physical wellness appointments. Like we'll talk about our definition in a little bit, but we talk about in our definition our daily choices, habits, and behaviors, right? And having these appointments in our calendar and in our schedule. And I think for some people, they're like, oh yeah, like I grew up doing that. And other people may not have grown up doing it.
Right.
And I think, I don't know why it's always a challenge for me, but it is one of those things that I have to get on my calendar. I have to commit to, and then it's like, okay, like an extra, right?
Yeah.
It is one of those things that, and it's extra time and hours. And I work from my home, so I've been out of my house a lot this week making all those appointments. But what about you? How you
I hear
been?
you. Been good. And similar story, and I always am interested when we're talking throughout the year, how our stories are different and still going in tandem with each other, So mine was supposed to go get my annual done. And actually, Christine, I was so tired that night. Last week, we were talking about me staying up till 6, right? The day before I was supposed to, and I think it was like 2 weeks ago, right? I was supposed to get up. I said, this is one of those nights. I'm so tired. I feel like I might fall asleep when I'm driving. Even if I am going to the doctor, I'll be at a different part of the hospital. Like, that's not where I need to go, right? Like, rest is better than going to the doctor right now. And, we talked about it that day. And that's where I am with my schedule being so busy. So that's what I'm looking at, is the physical demand of the work and the projects that we love and have going on our schedule. And what does it look like for the sustainability of it? What does it look like to ask for what you want right now and then think about the long term and what you want later on and what do you need to do today to get that? So we will be talking about the sexual vitality and intimate wellness. And when I think about that energy, like you were talking about the books with one of our coffee and chats being a baby, I think about how do we use this energy that we have in life, in our bodies, how are we intentional about that? And sometimes I'm okay with being tired. Sometimes I'm great having 10 hours of sleep instead of 8, and going with the ebb and flow of it. That's where I've been in this season as I schedule things and then they look differently.
Right? I think that that thing of change, right?
Yeah.
And how do we pour into ourselves, especially with our physical wellness right now,
Mm.
when a lot of things feel overwhelming or there's just a lot going on.
Yeah.
And so, really checking in with ourselves, in interplay, we have the practice of stopping and noticing and really noticing what's going on in our bodies.
Yeah.
And, when I teach on Tuesdays, I teach a radical self and community care class. And we often will dance or we'll move or we'll do something and then we'll pause and we'll check in and be like, all right, where's a spot in our body that feels really great after moving? And where's a spot that doesn't, right? And that balance between the two and the noticing, because most people can tell you what doesn't feel good in their body, right?
Yeah.
Like what they
Right.
don't like or what's hurting or what and then but what feels good sometimes can be a challenge. So,
Mm. And what
yeah.
I love about that in application to other things too is, okay, we can talk about what might be bringing pain or the opportunity that we have, right? But that's not the only thing. Sometimes we can only focus on that and then it makes it bigger and we're not focused on solutions and all these other things, right? But if you admit that, hey, this is present and this other truth is also present and you live in the space in between and acknowledge both, for me, that brings peace even on our entrepreneurial journey and our volume 3 journey of this is where I wanna be, this is where I am. How do I get closer to that side than where I'm at right now?
And
Instead
how
of,
can I keep breathing through it all?
my goodness, don't stop breathing. Yes, it's important.
How about I read our definition for today and
Right.
then we read our guest bio and get her out here. Does
Yeah,
that work?
let's do that. Yes, I'm
I'm
looking forward
excited
to
about this conversation. So, today, y'all, we're talking about physical wellness. And physical wellness is the ability to maintain a quality of life that allows you to thrive in your daily activities without undue fatigue or physical stress. Physical wellness recognizes that our daily choices, habits, and behaviors have an impact on our overall health, well being, and quality of life. What are we choosing today?
Yes. So important. And when I think about it, I don't know what comes up for you when you read this definition this time. It's the habits and behaviors, when you get to a certain place and you want to, um, be able to show up, whether it's show up for the podcast, show up for work, show up in a relationship. What are your daily habits and behaviors that make it so that you can physically do that?
Mhm.
Hydration is number one thing for me. I saw this post. I don't know if you know any research and like numbers backing this, that detox, the number one system for detox is your respiratory system.
Hmm.
I thought that was
I
really
didn't know that because I've heard lymph system before.
Mm,
So
okay.
interesting. I would love to see what you were reading and
I'll see if
see
I
if
can
we can,
find it. Send it
yeah.
to you. What do you think about this? What comes up for you this week?
With physical wellness,
With
the
the rest.
word that jumps out to me is thrive.
Mm.
Thrive.
Yeah,
Because, I'm trying to reset after the last couple of years of
yeah,
really
no,
doing a lot of caregiving, a lot of travel, a lot of really big emotional stuff, which has had an impact on my physical wellness. And, and I've been surviving and I've been maintaining, but I
yeah.
wanna thrive and,
So,
have more fun.
and I have a question. You said after. Is it after or like how do you gauge the levels? Hey, Cole,
Hey, Coach Co,
in
so
the
glad you're
building.
with us today.
Yes, live in the comments. Would you say after? How do you gauge? For me, it's almost like a ship coming into, is it the dam that has the steps that lowers and raises the water so that the bigger ships can come in? Do you know what I'm
Oh,
talking
like
about?
a lock. Oh, I've
Like a
seen
what?
one of those, like a lock.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
I
I think
love
that's
that.
I don't
Mhm.
remember the name of it, but that's how I think of it, right? Like you might have been at level 5 and right now you're still on, but are you at level 2? How would you say that you are? Because we know that you've still been traveling, we've still been helping. So when we talk about physical wellness and how we, what do you say now? Acknowledge instead of hold.
Right.
Which level would you say that you're on now? And when you're dealing with your week of self-care?
When you're talking, well, okay, I think I might have to get more specific. Ask that
Mhm.
question. Like, are you talking about physical wellness or are you talking about get a little more specific with the question for me?
I'm talking about the level of, what did you say? Not self-care, the
I was
level
saying
of,
thriving in
mhm, of caregiving.
oh, where
Because
am I at in the level?
you
Yes.
say after
Okay.
caregiving, and
Okay.
it is
On a
different,
scale of
but
1 to what? What's
maybe
my
1 to
scale?
5. 1 to 5, and 5
5 being the
being
height?
last year, and there's
Oh, yeah. I'm probably at a 3.
okay.
'Cause, we're for listeners that have been listening a long time, my dad passed. I had we lost 7 family members in a matter of 2 years. It was really intense,
Mm,
and, so I would still say I'm at a level 3 because I am, helping my mom to clean out our family house. Like, that's where I was last week when we did the podcast, and, that is a different level of caregiving. It still is, right? And it's really emotional and things like that, but
mhm.
the actual physical caregiving is not there. Yes, Courtney, happy Women's History Month. Huge
Happy
shout out to all of you. Yes,
yes,
teaching ladies about wellness in all aspects as well as how to collaborate instead of compete. We are women making history, and you are
yes.
one of us, Courtney Dorsey. So glad
Yes,
to see
thank
you
you.
here
I
today.
receive that. I receive that. Yes, and that's you too, Susan, because she was talking about all of us too, right? I know we haven't
Right,
pulled you up yet, but we're gonna include you. So, I hear what you're saying, and I ask that just um, we talk about to give the real picture of what's really going on. That's what we're about
right.
to talk about. What happens when it's 2 years and 3 years of this, and then this,
Mm,
you have this other part of life, and that helps you live, the like we're talking about the vitality and the joy and the happiness and the different things
right.
that come with it, but it is another level of capacity and mental awareness.
Well, and I think especially around grief and death and dying, people
Yeah.
say a year, and part of that is just sheer logistics also. Like how much
Right.
paperwork there
A
is,
year.
stuff there is, how much, right? So where are we at right now from May? Are we about halfway?
10 months.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we're not to a year yet.
Mm.
We're well past halfway. See? It's a time space
It
continuum
is,
too.
it is.
Um, so yeah, just I think where all that goes
Yeah,
and getting on back on schedules
yeah,
and grateful to be home this week.
yeah, grateful to have you here, and I know personally it's difficult sometimes to ask for what you want and see the forest for the trees in these seasons and those seasons. So, y'all, I'm
Mhm.
excited to bring our expert guest up. Are you ready, Christine?
Let's do it.
Thank you
Let's do
for
it.
being a good sport. I know I just asked you like a very detailed question. I appreciate you.
No problem.
Okay,
Always
y'all.
happy to answer your questions.
Yeah, you did great. You did great. Y'all, today we're talking to Susan Bratton. And Susan Bratton is the intimacy expert to millions. She's a champion and advocate for all those who desire intimacy and passion their whole life long. She's created hundreds of techniques that transform having sex into making love and is the world's most well-respected sexual biohacker. Susan is the co-founder and CEO of two companies, Personal Life Media Incorporated, a publisher of the Better Lover brand of heart-connected lovemaking techniques and bedroom communication skills, and sexual regenerative therapies, and the 20 LLC, a manufacturer of organic and botanical supplements that enhance sexual vitality. Flow is a nitric oxide booster for better blood flow. The Desire multivitamin, multi-mineral supplements have high quality, let me know if I said this right, Susan, methylated B vitamins and libido botanicals built in. Help us welcome to the stage, Susan Bratton. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Shannon. Hi, Christine. How do you like my shirt?
Let me see. And women we
Love
trust.
your shirt.
Yes.
Are you
I know. I wore it for you today.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for
How
our
do you like my
listeners that are
shirt?
just listening and aren't seeing us today.
Yes,
It says, "In women we trust."
it
Yes,
is.
yes,
I
yes.
love it. How do you like my shirt,
Listen,
Susan? I wore it for you today.
you
I said
look
I'm gonna have my
beautiful,
shoulders
Shannon.
up.
Very sexy. You got your sexy going on.
Yes, yes.
She
Bring
showed
it
up
on.
with the red lips. I was like, "Oh,
Yeah,
you
looking
look good
beautiful.
today."
Thank you. Super excited to have this conversation with you.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
I would love for you to tell our listeners, when you think about sexual vitality,
Mm.
what do you mean? Where are you coming from with
Yeah.
this perspective?
Yeah. Combination of things. Number one, I feel you would feel an ease in your body around your sexuality. You'd feel acceptance and love. You would realize that body image issues are just just kind of an artifact of being estrogen dominant, and that every woman suffers from it. And you would know that sex is a mindfulness practice, and that you could begin to, every time you have doubts and fears, bring yourself back to your knowing about what feels good. You talked a little bit in the introduction today about interoception, the idea that you can feel what's going on in your body, and that often it's easier to access the pain than it is the pleasure. But that's really a mindfulness practice of really listening to her, this woman's body that you're in, because she is always talking to us. She's always telling us what she wants when we tune in. I call that channel K-Love. And that's the right radio station. Estrogen makes us very it's got so many benefits, estrogen, but it also makes us good multitaskers because we're constantly looking around 360 degrees at everything that's going on in the world, because we have to keep ourselves safe, because we are the prey, not the predator in the animal kingdom of Homo sapien. And, not all men are scary, but there are enough of them, and they are the majority of the predators. And so it takes us a long time to get out of our heads and into our body to feel and tune into that K-Love station. And estrogen is a molecule of judgment, and that's to keep us safe. But it also makes us sometimes overly afraid or overly judgmental about ourselves. So I would say that I would want you to feel an ease and a grace for being alive and being on the earth and having access to pleasure. And you would feel knowledgeable about your body. You'd understand the parts and how they work. You'd understand that you've grown up in a patriarchal, white, masculine universe, and that it has done significant damage to you, and that you are going to spend the rest of your life realizing what those things are and moving into what's right for us as females in a female body. You would understand that your arousal is completely different than the patriarchal perspective of arousal that we've seen. And you'd begin to understand what female arousal looks like and honor and celebrate it and demand it. Demand for yourself the time and the space to have the kind of touch and love and heart connection and safety and novelty and variety and attention and adoration and acceptance that is required for you to completely surrender to your pleasure. You'd also understand that once you mastered surrender, once you could get out of your head and into your body and really access pleasurable states, that they are all learned skills, and that it's actually your brain that processes sensation, and you've got to feed it sensation for it to get good at processing it. And that you're not broken in any way, that you're literally underdeveloped because of the society and the time that you were born into. And that you're
All right, wait,
willing to,
wait, Susan,
yeah,
pause. You got to go back because I saw Shannon like totally light up about 2 sentences back
You know, I
okay,
about
did.
your brain and feeding it
Mhm.
sensation. Will you say
I like
that
that.
part one more time? Because
yeah.
those of y'all that are listening, not watching, like her whole body, like I just saw something
You know,
happen.
the
So you got to say
psychology
that
degree
again.
came out, said, "Yep, I know,
Yeah.
yep, that makes sense. The brain, the different centers." I'm listening to you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, we're taught that your brain is your biggest sex organ. But what does that really mean? What that really means is not you want dirty talk or things like that. What it really means is that your brain is the processing center of sensation. And right in this kind of the top and the center of your brain, depending on where you're touched all over your body, because, we have erogenous zones all over our body. We're highly orgasmic beings. We can have over 20 kinds of orgasms, many of which are in the category of locations to touch. But often they're not all orgasmic. Almost none of them are when we start becoming sexual beings. And over time, we can train the things that right now might feel painful or make us feel ashamed to be touched there, or we're numb, which is a really common sensation. They can all be trained into feeling loving touch as pleasure. And it's your brain that needs the neural pathways and the sensation to begin to register things and to transform them, to have a metamorphosis from shame and pain and numbness into pleasure. And that's what I like to call orgasmic activation. So you would think about your sex life as a part of your personal growth. Your sexual growth and your personal growth are two sides of the same coin, just as your libido and your overall health are two sides of the same coin. If you don't feel horny often, it's not just your hormones or the lack of nitric oxide for blood flow or things like that. It's often general mitochondrial dysfunction, health issues, emotional, physical combinations of things, as well as things like traumas, repressed traumas, shame you felt, religious programming you've been under, never having a loving partner that knew what they were doing, because our partners don't get taught anything either. We're the blind leading the blind behind closed doors. So you would enter into your sexuality with a lot of forgiveness, self-love, and an appetite for learning, understanding that the fear that you're living in is coming from a lack of knowledge due to a society that represses women's pleasure. And when you begin to take that back and claim your body and your pleasure and begin to feel it, it takes practice to start to feel it. But once you know that there's nothing wrong with you, that you can have all the kinds of orgasms and that they're literally just learned skills, like sexual communication is a learned skill, like understanding how to take care of your parts, how they work, your arousal, your desire systems, all of them are just learned skills. So you'd have a confidence to know that you're on a journey. You'd have expansiveness with yourself, that you need to listen to her and to slow down and to ask for what you need. You'd begin to learn how to ask for what you need. You'd begin to know what you want by listening. And you train your partner to always love to hear what it is you'd need. You'd be aware that you're on a 28-day cycle, even after menopause. We're moon people. We run with the moon. We ebb and we flow. And just as we begin to respect our ovulatory, our luteal phases, etc., we'd begin to respect how those affect our sexuality as well. We'd be a lot less hard on ourselves. And we'd be a lot more open to trying new things, knowing that navigating new territory was something that helped us grow and expand into our sexuality. And finally, and there's plenty more, but I'll just wrap it up with the fact that we'd also understand that good sexuality is our birthright, that it's a jewel in the crown of the beautiful things in life, like the love of family and friends, and the food, the delicious food that we nurture ourselves with, and art and music and dance and nature, and the things that make being alive so good, that instead of our sexuality being beat out of us like it has been, we begin to embrace it, because what we'd realize is that people who do have lifelong intimacy, and we don't age out of hot sex. We get better at sex as we age. We get more experience and confidence. And with that, if we fight for our sexuality and the pleasure that it gives us so many cascades of neurotransmitters, production of hormones, generation of oxytocin, nervous system reboots, oxygenation of the brain, vascular events, lowers our inflammation and improves our immune function, increases our natural killer cells and our IGF-1. It does so many things when we have pleasurable, orgasmic sex, and to not shy away from pursuing orgasm, because that's the gold, that's the jewel in the crown of sexuality, is orgasmic pleasure. Not saying, oh, I just am not the kind of person who can, but to know that it's literally just a series of steps that get you there once you train your body to stay in sensation and feel the pleasure. So you'd fight for your sexuality as a seat of your creativity, your passion, and your lust for life.
Whew, I love that, Susan.
I love it. Well said.
Oh, I got a little applause from Christine. Woo!
Yes.
Earlier, but I got to pop it up again because it made
Yeah.
me giggle. Courtney said while you were talking, learning sounds fun.
Yes.
That it
That's
is.
the point. Yes.
Yeah,
And I just what was coming up for me, Susan, because we were just talking about earlier in the show about caregiving and my dad's death.
I heard.
He was when he was in his last week of his life, he was doing his life review. You know, if anybody's been with somebody who's
Yeah.
dying, it's a very sacred process. But he had hospice had come in and given him a bath, and he was in and out of consciousness. He was, he was on his way out the door, and hospice came in and gave him a bath, and then at this point he really wasn't sitting up. He was just in his bed, but I could tell when he was present and when he wasn't present. And sometimes he was talking and sometimes he wasn't. But some of the last things he said, and my mother hopefully will not listen to this podcast because I'm going to embarrass her if I do. But he he had had this bath, and I felt him come to consciousness, and I was like, "Hey, Dad," and I said, "What you doing?" Because it felt like he wanted to sit up and go somewhere, and his whole spirit and energy smiled, and he said, "Oh, I'm going home to have hot sex with my wife." Like, "You go, Dad. You
Yes.
go." So you talking about that we don't age out of it,
We don't.
right? And, I'll tell one more family story because this is our family that we come from. I come from a very sex positive family,
Good.
and, my, my grandfather, when he was in his 80s, was going through, he was going through prostate cancer.
Yeah.
And I'm at my grandmother's house, and this was after I was married because it's a very Southern thing that you really don't talk about sex with your family until you're married. And I didn't even know that was a thing until I got married, and people that I didn't really need to know about their sex life started talking to me about their sex life. But my grandmother was talking to me one day at the kitchen table about my grandpa having prostate cancer, and then his doctor said to him that he needed to have sex every night because of the health benefits, right?
Mm.
And then she leans over, it was so cute. She was in her 80s at this point, and she leans over and she goes, "Ah, I just have to tell you, I kinda like it."
Good. That's so great. I'm glad that you had good role models because one of the things people say to me most often is my parents never touched. They never told me about sex. And they get in this kind of victimhood mindset because they think that their parents were supposed to tell them. Their parents didn't know anything. They didn't know what they were doing. It is really your own personal development, your sexuality. It's your own responsibility. And people feel relieved, like they really come to me feeling that they've been shortchanged. And then when I say, forgive your mom and dad. I mean, they wouldn't have been able to tell you anything anyway. So just let that go. And that's healing for people.
Yeah, and that's what I think about in a lot of the resources that we share with Women Connected in Wisdom. You know, we want our parents to be these people who know everything and can prepare us for everything. And the reality is they were coming from where they were coming from, just like we're coming from where we're coming from. And everybody has strengths and weaknesses, things to offer, and things that you learn, like, yes, I want to do it just like that, and don't want to do it like that, So
Yeah.
I'm excited to be having this conversation.
I brought some illustrations for our conversation today because I know that you stream this out to YouTube. And I think that sometimes the most beneficial place to start is to talk about our genital structures. Are you open to doing that, or do you have something that you'd like me to talk about for you?
Before we go there first, I
Yeah.
wanted to know, Susan, how did you get into this? Like, what did you like? How did you become this expert
Mhm.
about sexual pleasure and this whole like? I wanted to know your personal. How'd you get connected to this topic?
Yeah. Well, I'm 63 and having the best sex of my life. And when I was just about 20 years younger, in my very early 40s, I had started avoiding my husband for sex. And he was so sad. And I just didn't want to do it anymore. I'd never had an orgasm from intercourse, and I'd had intercourse with him for a dozen years. And I was just not getting enough out of it. And it felt like he was so needy. And it just was another thing for me to do. And it was ruining our marriage, my avoidance. And I thought there was something wrong with me. And this is very common. I think there's something wrong with me. He thinks there's something wrong with me, but he still wants sex anyway. That's a very, very common paradigm. And
hey, y'all, this is a great place to take a break, take a deep breath, and hear from our awesome sponsors that make Women Connected in Wisdom podcast possible. Shannon, we are so grateful that Shayla Glow is the sponsor of the Women Connected in Wisdom podcast. And I wanted to take this moment to ask you, when you think about the people who use Shayla Glow, who are we talking about?
That's a good question. I think about three groups, really. One, the group that's removing hair, right? So whether you're using laser hair removal, waxing, shaving, you got to make sure that you're putting back what you're taking out. The second group, I think about those with dry skin and the problems that that might cause, right? The scars, itching, burning, whatever the situation is, you definitely need all three steps, right? The exfoliation, making sure you're taking the dead skin cells off, the oil, putting in the moisture, and then the shea butter with the aloe, sealing it, helping you heal. Those things help both groups, right? And third, for the third group is those with chronic illness. You know, the story is personally from cancer and different diseases that our population is dealing with on a daily basis throughout families as individuals. So I'm thinking about my mom and my grandmother and those around me with the same generational ties, right? And what positive, healthy habits we can start to make sure that we're maintaining our wellness, especially because the skin is like the cape, the exterior, the shield for your immune system. So with COVID, we have to be intentional about covering ourselves. And those are the groups I think about.
I love it. And you know what else I love about your product? It's all natural, handmade, and it smells great, y'all. So
esthetician tested. Yes, esthetician tested and approved. Yes. What about you? When you think about your company, what groups of people do you think about?
Well, you know, I work with individual coaching clients. I work in community classes and with corporate teams. And with all of them, I use a strength-based, embodied approach to help folks connect with themselves and access joy, reduce burnout, and build resilience. You know, especially during these times, I think we need it. I think we need all the hashtag partnership power we can get.
Yes.
We loved each other. We were best friends. We had a little girl who's now 27. And we didn't want to lose our marriage. We wanted to see if we could fix it. We started out at marriage therapy, and that wasn't what we needed. There were some things that were helpful in that way, but marriage therapists aren't really taught about how to have great sex. And 2 decades ago, there weren't that many sex therapists. The one that we went to had an expertise in sex therapy, but it wasn't really solving our problem. We were reading some books and things like that, but there were a couple of things that really changed it for us, and that became the catalyst to us starting the company that we have now, which is that I'm not a therapist. I don't sit in an office and have sessions with anyone. I'm not a coach. I don't work one-on-one with anyone. I'm a publisher and author of passionate lovemaking techniques, bedroom communication skills, and intimate wellness information. And that is both regenerative therapies, things that can reverse the atrophy, the loss of lubrication, incontinence, vaginal laxity, difficulty achieving orgasm. For men, erectile dysfunction, prostate issues, loss of desire, low libido, etc. And then there's also sexual biohacking, which is taking what you have and making it work even better, higher functioning genitals, kind of like working out at the gym kind of thing. What can you do that makes you even better than you would be normally, typically? You know, it's almost like when you go to get a hormone test and they say, well, you're in the range, and you're like, in the range for a 50-year-old or a 60-year-old? I want to be in the range for a 20-year-old, you know? So right. Being in the optimal range, even more than optimal, is sexual biohacking. So I don't sit and talk to anyone. What I started doing was publishing the work of my mentors, because what my husband and I ended up doing was going to sex workshops. Sex, love, and intimacy, tantric lovemaking, expanded orgasm, all kinds of things. And it was so easy to get good in bed together. If somebody just tells you what to do, and you do it, our operating systems work the way our operating systems work. Like we live in the Homo sapien body. It has a set of inputs it needs to have incredible pleasure. And if you know what they are and you do them, it works. Everybody is massively multi-orgasmic. They literally just, no one told them how to do it. And so I started publishing the work of my mentors and bringing it online instead of having the only people who could get it go to workshops. And then over the last 2 decades, I've just been studying. I'm a super nerdy, sciencey girl. And I just applied my ability to feel what happens in my body and the sensations and experiences that I have when I would give myself various inputs and describe and write the step-by-step experiences so that people could follow my steps and have great sex. And so that's how my shift from feeling like I was broken and there was something wrong with me to feeling massively, I'm great in bed. Like, it's just, once you know what to do, you have so much fun. You have so many ideas. It's so fulfilling. It's just such a wonderful part of your life. And so for the last 20 years, I've been writing and doing videos and, publishing things that people can follow to have the same positive experiences. Just explaining to people what no one told them and then what they need to know to have these incredible experiences. And so it changed my life with my partner. We've now been happily married for going on 34 years this year.
Congratulations.
And, I am no different than anyone else. I just put my attention on creating passionate lovemaking techniques, trying to transform having sex into making love, because everything we see out there is like pornography for men. It's penis focused. It has nothing to do with women's pleasure. It's like we're just there as a vessel for them. And I've been trying to write that for 2 decades. Fix it, not write about it, but fix
Right.
it.
Absolutely.
So that's how I got into it. And that's what I do. And how I'm different is that most people in the sexuality space, they are teaching things like great things like female embodiment or kink or BDSM, or their therapists who are fixing a low libido. Low libido is bullshit. It's not a real thing. It's a word we use for, I don't find sex pleasurable and I'm not motivated to have it. Well, why is that? Low libido sounds like you've got a disease or something wrong with you. You know what I mean? It's like our fault. I have a low libido. There's something wrong with me. Not at all. You're literally just not getting what you need, girl. Once you start getting
I
what
have a
you
quick
need, you're like,
question on this, Susan. I have
oh,
a quick question because we had a copy and chat with a person earlier about menopause.
yeah.
So will you address, like, for women that are perimenopausal or menopause, because that, is it a myth? Because what I just heard you say is that is a myth that happens at perimenopause or
It's
like,
not, I didn't say it was a myth. What I said was that low libido sounds like there's something wrong with us
right,
rather than that we're
right,
not getting what we need. It
okay,
sounds like we've got a problem.
right,
Like there's something, like we're
yeah,
broken. And I just don't like that. But it's, it's one of I don't like the words play and sex either, because foreplay makes it sound like that's just the appetizer to this main event, which is sex, which is intercourse. And so none of that other stuff is important. Everything is driving to intercourse, and it gets driven so fast to the male oriented time frame that is shown everywhere that we think there's something wrong with us because we can't get lubricated or turned on, or, like, oh, it must be us. I don't want it. Like, he has to beg me. Well, of course, because he's trying to penetrate you like way before you're ready. Not when there's new relationship energy. Sometimes you're hot to trot. Sometimes you're in ovulation and you're ready to
sometimes
hop
you're
on top,
20.
or you're 20 or what have you. But menopause, I mean, when your estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone declines,
Mm-hmm.
you are going to have thinning of the vaginal tissue, like you're going to have thinning of all of the tissue. The vagina is a muscle. It's not a gland. It's not self-wetting. And so the way that it works is that when your estrogen starts to diminish, your vaginal mucosal lining thins. And when it thins, it can't hold as much moisture. There's no mass there. And it gets painful, and it can tear, and it can hurt, especially at the introital sphincter, the opening to the vagina. And so and then your labia is atrophying, your clitoris is atrophying as you age, especially accelerated during menopause when the estrogen is diminishing. And so everything's shrinking. And you're also equally losing nitric oxide production, which has been accelerated in modern times because we're eating more ultra-processed foods, less leafy green vegetables. We're using antibacterial mouthwashes. 30 million people are on proton pump inhibitors and taking Tums and acid blockers. All of those things depress your nitric oxide, which is the system that squeezes the blood down into your pelvic bowl so that the plasma can seep through the vaginal mucosal linings and lubricate everything. So if you don't have enough blood flow and you're rushed to sex and you don't get the loving, you don't get the holding, you don't get the getting out of your head and into your body, you don't get the kissing, the full body touch, someone to rub that spot so you can relax. Arousal begins in relaxation. And often our men are trying to grab us, push us, get us going when what we really need first is to get relaxed because they're ready to go because that's how their arousal works. So they think that's what we're like, or there's something wrong with us if we're not responding like a man with fast acting hemodynamics, fast blood flow. We've got the same amount of erectile tissue in our vulva as our male body partner does in his penis. And what you see sticking out is only about half of it. It goes in and down toward his testicles. The whole penis is filled with spongy tissue. If I took that out and I put that on my hand and weighed it on a scale, and then I took the erectile tissue that's surrounding your vagina and comes to a point at the tip of your clitoris, but it's all the way around your vaginal area. If I took that out and put it on my hand, the scales would weigh the same relatively. And yet he gets a hard on in 2 or 3 minutes and he's driving toward what he thinks is the thing, which is intercourse. And it takes us 20 or 30 minutes, depending on our levels of stress, our mitochondrial health, how well our hormones are producing, all kinds of things, how much we like our partner outside the bedroom. And it takes us 20 to 30 minutes to achieve our lady boner, our clitoral erectile function, so that sex feels good, so that the tissue is full of blood, so that when you touch it, there's lots more surface area, which is sending way more signals to your brain. Now you've got massive amounts of signals going. If it's shriveled and tight and dry and you're rushed and you're just trying to have sex, I mean, how many times are you going to want to do that before you think, ugh, I got low libido? It's just the whole paradigm is patriarchal. And this is why we need to understand there's not a darn thing wrong with us. But during midlife, we slow down. Our hormones diminish. Our nitric oxide is lower. Our mitochondrial function diminishes. It just takes the system down. Libido is a biomarker of health. And if your health is on its way down, your libido is. So there's nothing wrong with us. We're responsive desire people, not typically spontaneously ready to go. And we don't learn enough about oral pleasuring, yoni massage, full body touch, kissing. We don't get enough of those things or enough time to really get ready and turned on.
Thank you for breaking it down so specifically and scientifically. Yeah. I have a question about something you said earlier. I would love, especially with it being Women's History Month, to talk about the benefits of estrogen.
Oh, God. I mean, you know how when Santa is getting ready to get in the sleigh and go to every little kid's house in the world, and he has his list and it's rolled up in this scroll, and if he unrolled it, it would wrap around the world? Mm-hmm. Okay, that's what my scroll looks like for the benefits of estrogen. The benefits of estrogen affect every single aspect of your health. from brain cognition to heart health and lung health and organ health and skin health and everything. I mean, it is such a vital hormone. I have been taking bioidentical hormone replacement for decades, and progesterone and testosterone.
Okay.
And I really feel like all of those things have added years to my energy, my life, my anti-aging, my sexual desire, the pleasure that I have, all kinds of things, cognitive function, etc.
All right. So, Susan, I don't know if you have the answer for this, but I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
Because I know you have your supplements. But
Yeah.
where would a woman that was listening to our podcast
Yeah.
that said, oh, hey, I'm not exactly where I want to be?
Yeah.
Like, how did you start to figure out that you might need more testosterone or more progesterone? Like, how did you start this journey?
Yeah, you could just get a blood test or a Dutch test. Dutch is a 4-point dried urine test. And it's a little bit better because it both shows how it's a 24-hour test. So you pee 4 times on these little strips and it can tell what the metabolites of the hormone production are. And what that tells you is not only are you making it, but is it bioavailable in your body? So sometimes, there's this thing called free and bound hormones, and the free hormones come from how much sex binding globulin you have. And so you need to see how much you have that you make and how much you have that's available. And the Dutch test is very good for that. So functional medicine doctors, naturopaths, even many healthcare providers, allopathic, traditional healthcare providers, gynecologists, etc., can order these tests for you. And then they order your estrogen, progesterone. I mean, my estrogen patch costs me. I've got California Blue Shield healthcare, and my estrogen patches cost me $8 a month, and my progesterone costs me $3 a month. So for $11 a month, I have bioidentical hormone replacement. I pay a little more for my testosterone. I have it compounded in a shea butter from a compounding pharmacy. I think that probably, I buy it for I buy 90 days worth, and I think it's, probably $40 a month or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I put it right on the clitoris and labial structures of my genitals, because you can take testosterone, you can put it on your skin. Well, I put it on my vaginal skin. I put it on my vulval skin. That way it keeps that tissue meaty. It helps me build muscle. I don't know if you can see, but I got popping biceps.
We see him. We see him. Come on now.
Yeah. I mean, and that you were saying too, Christine, how you have to have appointments to go do things because you're kind of a workaholic.
Right.
That's me. And so one of the things that I do is I work out multiple days a week with a trainer, because otherwise I just won't do it. I'll just work all the time because I love what I do.
Right.
And so that's my coping mechanism, like yours. And it gets my butt out into the gym. And I'll be 64 this year. And about, let's say it's March now, and I'll be 64 at the end of July. And my goal is to deadlift my body weight. I weigh 160 pounds. I'm tall, like big girl. And I like being big. I want a lot of muscle on here, and I don't mind if there's fat on top of it. I'm good. And, I want to deadlift my body weight by my 64th birthday. So I'm going from 75 deadlift pounds in about 15 weeks or 16 weeks. I will be lifting 160 pounds.
You got this.
I will.
Yeah, I know you will.
I know you will.
Doing
you
it.
will.
So
Yeah.
testosterone really helps you with strength training, which to me, flexibility, is very, very important. Balance is very, very important. Grip strength is like, I get a jar and I'm like, and then I go, oh no, you are opening. When you strength train and you're strong, you feel really resilient and capable. And all that good muscle it's immune function, it's strength. It's going to carry you into your old age.
It's health, and you're having a
It
good
is.
time and having
Yeah,
fun while you're doing it.
exactly.
So I have another specific question because I
Yeah,
am keeping one eye on time.
yeah,
Um, when you have like daily multivitamins and like on your website, can people
yeah.
figure out which one to take? Or is there one you recommend? And does it replace like a woman's regular multivitamin?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, let me explain the difference of them for you. I've got them right here. So I like basics. Like it's nice to do a whole bunch of extra stuff, which I ebb and flow on depending on my busyness, my energy, etc. But I always do the fundamentals. And I feel like there's a couple of really important fundamentals with regard to supplementation that also support your sexual energy. And the very first one is a daily multivitamin, multimineral complex. And so what I did was I made a super high quality product that has what are called methylated vitamins in them, methylated B vitamins, because approximately 40% of us, especially people of color, they skew even higher on the need for methylated B vitamins because I have this too, a genetic SNP called MTHFR. And there's all kinds of folic acid in most of women's vitamins, and it's a cheap form of vitamin B9 that 30 to 40% of the marketplace is actually can't take. It bothers us, but it builds up in our system. We can't move it through. So like all the white flour, white bread, muffins, pizza, it's all made with this enriched flour with folic acid that a lot of us can't tolerate. And, methylated B9 and methylcobalamin B12 are the methylated versions that we can take. If you've ever gone in and gotten a vitamin B shot and been like, or taken vitamin B supplements and been like, I got no extra energy out of that. That did not make me feel any better. You're likely MTHFR. You can go to lifeextension.com and take that test. I think it's $99 and know if you have that genetic anomaly, in which case you definitely want methylated. Everyone benefits from higher quality methylated B supplementation. Certain people definitely need it, and it's good to know if you're one of them. So then I said, okay, I studied botanicals, aphrodisiacs for years, read all the clinical data. And it's interesting that the most well-studied libido botanicals, which help primarily with blood flow and hormone production and stamina, like actual mitochondrial function, are from different parts of the world, and they're the ones that work the best. Tongkat Ali is a Malaysian root. Maca is a Peruvian root. Tribulus terrestris is a Mediterranean yellow-flowered puncture vine. Fenugreek is the seed from Ayurveda, from India and that area of the world. And cacao, which is chocolate, the polyphenols from dark chocolate. These are the 5 botanicals that work the best for supporting your libido. But the thing is that if you take them all the time, they lose their effect. And so when you're working with herbalists of any kind, traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic practitioners, what you'll find is that in every indigenous wisdom around libido botanicals, there's this notion of herb cycling. You take them, they take about 10 days to come to effect, and then they start to wane in about a month or so, back to the moon cycles. And so what I did was I made the same multivitamin in each one of my 3 bottles of Desire multivitamins, but each one has a different, there's another one over there on the couch. Each one has a different libido botanical. So you start with Tongkat Ali, then go the next month when you're done with this bottle, you do the Tribulus terrestris, then the next month you do the fenugreek, and then you start over. And that just gives you a little boost. And what I've noticed personally, and it's different for different people, is that the Tongkat Ali makes me like a little more, it's a little bit more of a masculine kind of a feeling. It's more of the like, ah, ha, ha, ha. And the tribulus is more like, and the fenugreek is like right between them in the middle for me. It's a little bit of both. It's the more kind of moderate one. And that's what I notice in my body as I rotate through them on a monthly basis. So a vitamin mineral complex is like a foundation, good thing to take. And then blood flow, as I mentioned, a lot of people think it's their libido, but most of the atrophy actually comes from a loss of vascularization because our soils are nitrogen depleted. We eat and have access to less leafy green vegetables and beetroot. Many of us live in food deserts where we can't even get good vegetables. I was watching this adorable guy on Instagram last night. It was 3:00 in the morning because I still wake up sometimes.
Right.
And he was making pasta aglio olio. And he was so cute. And he was whipping this up in his kitchen. But he held up the parsley and it was limp. And I was like, he lives in a food desert because no parsley at my grocery store looks like that. My parsley is all like,
Right.
I mean, it could have been a little old, but I bet he went out and bought it and it wasn't as fresh. And so we have nitrogen depleted soil, difficulty getting really high quality vegetables. And so we don't get the nitrates that convert to nitrites that convert to the nitric oxide that squeezes the blood where it needs to go. And by the time you're 50, you have half the nitric oxide production that you did when you were 20, which means you're not getting your lady boner and your husband's not getting his man boner. And so taking a nitric oxide supplement helps with cognitive function, vascular. I mean, if your rings swell on your fingers or your ankles swell or your feet swell in your shoes, that is edema. It is the first sign of a lack of nitric oxide in your body. And frankly, nitric oxide is at the core of all of the diseases that we die from, a loss of nitric oxide. It's the simplest damn thing in the world to top up your nitric oxide system. But I like food-derived supplements. So I made Flow because most of the stuff out in the market is made in China from pesticide-laden corn that they make corn syrup out of, inoculate with bacteria and yeasts, and do scientific conversions, turn it into a white powder, and sell it to you. This is made with watermelon rind. That's where the Citrus vulgaris is the name of watermelon. And watermelon can be a little sugary to eat a lot of, and most of the citrulline is in the rind. So I use organic watermelon rind. I use organic pine bark, believe it or not. And I use organic spinach powder. So you just get to top your systems up with real food when you can't always get enough of your veggies. And those two things, between having enough things, simple things like boron, is what actually uncouples your bound estrogen and testosterone to free and available estrogen and testosterone, that tiny little mineral. So we need these things to be fully functioning, and they're just the basics. I don't do fancy because we're busy. I like the basics.
Thank you so much for that.
Was that helpful?
Very helpful.
Good.
Yes, I got a lot. We talked
and
about.
I'm happy to mail them to you. Let me know if you want any. I'll send them off to you guys.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Good. Yeah. After the show, we'll get your addresses. I'll give you my email after the show.
Okay, perfect.
I'll just give it to you right now. It's Susan@betterlover.com. And anybody who's listening can always email me and ask me anything, and I'll be happy. Often it's like I can point you to a video I shot or an article I wrote or a free ebook I have or something about anything. So happy to
And
answer.
we're going to also put all your social media handles in our show notes. So folks, if you're listening and driving or running or what you're often doing while you're listening to our podcast, it will be in the show notes, and you can connect with Susan. And I can't even believe an hour has gone by. It's been so quick. But this has just been such a fascinating conversation. And I'm so grateful that you are here, Susan.
Thank you for having me.
This up, Shannon?
Absolutely. So, Susan, we like to talk about this every week, what we're doing intentionally in this dimension of wellness. So, what are you doing for yourself this week for your physical wellness?
Well, I'm working on heavy lifting.
Mhm.
I'm always working on improving my sleep scores. I cook my own food so that I get good nutrition. I have some dates with my husband scheduled for yoni massages that we'll see where they go. They almost always turn into a little something more, but I never pressure myself, nor does he. Um, I think those are some of the main things that I do, and I take my vitamins.
I love it. Yoni massages. I love it. That's what I wanted to write down earlier. Okay.
Yeah.
So, hashtag, what was the first thing you said? If you had to
Heavy
hashtag
lifting,
Yeah,
that part,
strength training.
heavy
strength training.
lifting.
Yeah.
Strength training. I love it. And they're all actions. And that's what I try to be intentional about. Sometimes it'll just be like a hashtag that sounds good, but yours were all actionable for yourself with your community. I love it.
Sleep score. Hashtag sleep score.
Hello, hashtag sleep score.
Hashtag sex span.
Mm,
Hashtag longevity.
there we go.
Hashtag methylated B vitamins.
Right? No, really. Methylated. Since I
Hashtag
asked you how
nitric
to say it.
oxide.
Right? Hashtag not community.
Hashtag in women we trust.
Women
Yes.
we trust. I love it.
Then we're going to
Oh
hashtag
my
that. Okay.
gosh. I
Yes.
love it.
What about for you, Christine? What are you working on this
The
week?
one I wrote down because it just tickled me when she said it was navigating new territory.
Mhm.
Mm.
So I'm definitely reaching out. I was on your website checking out your supplements and yeah. And I
Mhm.
just, my husband and I always check in at the end of the day about how it was. And he always asks me how the podcast was. He's going to love this one.
So I love
Good.
Can I
it.
just tell you?
Yes.
Be like,
Hashtag
all
thrive.
right.
Worth the 4 years of podcasting, right? This one. Yes, yes, all the wellness, bringing it together.
It'll be like,
Yes,
that. What?
yes. Mhm. I love it.
What about you,
Let's
Shannon? What are you doing for your wisdom in action this week?
hmm. I love when you were talking about how the brain experiences pleasure, right? And what I've done is I think I've done a really good job at holding the pleasure in my mind, right? I can create those neural pathways. And I'm not just talking about sex, I'm talking about in general in life, right? We
Mhm.
know that the environment isn't always pleasurable. I can do it in my mind, but the disconnect sometimes is the sensation. You said
Yeah.
it's both together. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So when I'm trying to train myself in pleasurable ways and the intimacy that I want in my life, even outside of sex, that for me was really a aha moment. So I'll say, um, hashtag centering sensation.
I'm going to
Yes,
give you hashtag embrace.
I love it.
Mm.
I want you to get held this week.
Yeah, done already, and I will continue. I love it.
Good.
Mm.
Yes, yes.
Susan, thank you so much for coming
My
on
pleasure.
Women Connecting in
Hmm,
Wisdom. It is
this was
so
lovely.
delightful to be connected to you. And make
Lovely
sure
to meet
you
you.
follow us on socials. So if
I
you have
shall.
something going on, we can share with our audience. And
Well, and
we
I'll
will.
share this
Mm.
to all my followers and in my newsletter, which is very large. So you'll get some
Yeah.
new listeners.
Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you. So grateful to be connected. And I mean, just I feel like we could have talked another hour, like
Mhm.
because this is not something we talk about.
No.
In
I think I got to come back and show you my genital
I
map.
was thinking about the demonstrations that you were talking about.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, we will put you in our queue. We were talking with our before the show with our coffee and chat. We have a really good problem to have. We are booked out through the end of the
good.
year.
Excellent.
And
Well, I'm
so, but
around.
yes, we're putting you in the queue and
Yeah,
we
we are.
will definitely have you back for
Mhm.
physical wellness because
Sounds
I
good.
think this conversation, when we started Women Connecting Wisdom, one of the things we said is we wanted it to be like sitting around having coffee or tea with your girlfriend
Yeah.
and talking about how do we do this. And I think this conversation was so important today for
Mhm.
all ages of women. Like,
Yeah,
Thank
it
you. Thank
how
is.
you.
do we have healthy sex lives and
Mhm.
understand that it's a part of our physical health, that
Yeah.
it's an
Hmm.
indicator of our physical health. So
Mhm.
thank you so much for your
Yes.
wisdom, for your work in the world, and for being connected. We really grateful to know you.
My pleasure. Grateful to know you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Talk to you soon. Mm,
So fun. That
so
hour
good.
went by so quick.
I know. I know. We definitely have to continue it. She
Right?
in the first block when you were like, "Wait, repeat it," I felt like it was gonna be like that the whole show, and that's what it
Right?
was. Yeah.
It was fabulous.
Yeah.
Fabulous. All right, friend. I know we're over time. Any shout outs you want to give to our
Yes.
audience as we
So
close 186?
186. Yes, y'all. So if you're listening every week, you know we had the Connected and Vision Board Party, right? This is the thing though. It is not past tense. It is tonight, okay? Something happened the other 2 times. And like I said on social media, the third time is a charm. So
Mhm.
right? If you have things on your list that you want to see for yourself this year, if you're welcoming in the pleasure, right? Not only like we were talking about today, but in different areas of wellness as we walk through this year, join us in community. We're going to be doing our vision boards virtually, going through the 8 dimensions of wellness tonight from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. And the doors are still open. We were going to say that if we have all 24 today, doors are supposed to close for volume 3, right? And we get here as we walk through the timeline for the year during publication. So if you know somebody who, like Susan, has an amazing story, has a resource that's healthy, that's researched, that is worth sharing, we would love to uplift her story, uplift her resource, and have her in our 3rd volume. Get her connected, or you connect with us, right? At Women Connected in Wisdom podcast at gmail.com. And we'll send you over the details so that you can join our cohort.
Mhm. Yep. So good. So
Yeah.
grateful.
Yes.
And thanks for being connected, y'all. Thanks for following us on socials and being a part of the conversation.
Yeah.
And yeah, just
Yes. And we'll be live here at 5 next week. Join us for our next conversation. And in the meantime, don't forget,
be well,
be wise, and be
be
whole.
whole.
Peace.
Thanks for listening. This has been the Women Connected in Wisdom podcast. On air live on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern via Facebook and YouTube. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Be part of the conversation and get connected at womenconnectedinwisdom.com.